Greetings, everybody. We've gathered around the table today for another episode. This week we are going to start to stick our noses up a little bit and get a little snobby.
I'm going to turn my nose down rather than stick my nose up.
Oh, like you're
I'm going
looking,
to turn it down on stuff.
like you're looking
Oh,
down
yeah,
on things.
judgy. All sorts of judgy. Yeah.
One of these.
I don't know, rocket dumps. I suppose I should go first.
Sure.
I got a grip with an AWT scale. D2, because I got a Cabela's one with the D2, and then I got upgraded scales. And
Which were conveniently matching the D2 colors anyways for the
It
Cabela's.
was.
Yep.
It didn't change much. I got some smudge on the edge.
Yeah, you do.
That's good.
Yep.
That's what I'm carrying. Someone else do some shit.
Was going a little classy this week and decided to play around with my Inquista.
I always like seeing that guy come out to play.
It's a fun little knife.
It's cute. I enjoy it.
Throw a little monkey fist on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a monkey fist.
For
Oh my.
boinking those peasants begging for coins.
If you're gonna do it with a gorilla punch, not a monkey fist.
Gorilla punch.
Monkey fist
Sounds
is so
like a-
small, it doesn't get the job
I
done.
think it's my turn. This week I've got the Spyderco PPT Sprint Run Carbon Fiber S90. Awesome.
We'll nerd out on this in the Snobby Factor coming up here.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Go to something a bit different today. Little Northwoods. It's cute.
He acts like it's spring. He's got vegetables to prune and stuff. There's 18 inches of snow outside.
It's a weird little vegetables. He's pruning, but it's not vegetables.
No, I'm cutting down boxes and shit with that very, very fine tip. It's fun. It's
Boxes and stuff.
That's not code for people. No, it's not.
He doesn't. Paul did. Hopefully Canada legal friendly people get it. Hint, hint. But
He's not in the know.
he's pruning boxes.
Mm-hmm. Cutting down
That's the
things.
worst cover ever, dude.
Drat, my plans have been foiled again.
Alright, so on with the snobbiness.
What do you carry? Oh, Maku's done.
Yeah, we already did that.
Alright. I'll be done now.
It's like 2 ago.
It was. So yeah, this week we're going to be talking about the things that knife geeks get snobby over, and if it matters or not, and to what extent they really matter.
What grinds our gears?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And speaking of the grinding, may as well jump off first with grind lines.
Oh, that's a good segue. Oh, it's good. Good.
On
It
the
was
fly.
points I didn't even see coming, and then he got some points, and then I took it away because we're milking it way too much. But
Oh, this is taking away your points, not mine, because you're the one
That
milking
part
it.
of the video.
So, Nigel, what do you mean by grind lines?
Well, as far as pickiness of,
that loses points.
yeah.
I liked it. That was hilarious.
I'm trying to do
Does
that.
someone have something that we haven't polished out? Yeah, this one. But it's still pretty good grind lines on it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much when we reference the
It's schmutzy.
pickiness of grind lines are the bevels on each side even? Do they waver at all? Is it a nice crisp edge to it, or is it kind of hit or miss if it was a even angle to the grind?
Basically, that's going to affect how it cuts out a box and
Mhm.
how do the factories treat their knives.
Well, and that comes down to like QC on people paying attention to what you're doing, and the next guy on the assembly line caring whether that knife is ground while they're assembling
Well,
it in the handle and stuff like that.
And it totally depends on the systems they have for sharpening, right? Like in some cases, factories will have it totally automated, like Buck, and I think Spyderco actually have rotary wheels that bring down grinding wheels to get the same consistent edge on both sides. Like it's pretty automated in a lot of cases.
Yep.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
some factories still do it by hand, and I think Benchmade is one of those factories.
And Benchmade is one of the more consistently complained about in the knife community as far as evenness of grind lines, grind on the tip centering and stuff like that.
Tip centering, yes. Grind angle, which is quite often confused with the tip centering as well as the grind angle. The grind angles are pretty consistent. It's
Yes.
just the tip centering that has a major problem. The companies I personally have to call out is CRKT and
Yeah.
K-Bar. And K-Bar is highly overlooked, but K-Bar's edge out of the box is all over the map, and I don't know if that has to do with Cutco taking them over several years ago compared to what they used to be.
Little dirty secret if you guys didn't know that. K-Bar is owned by Cutco.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. But I mean,
They're still good.
K-Bar was outsourced to how many companies throughout the years to keep K-Bar floating?
Yeah.
So everyone from the Western Bowie Company to Camillus to
Yeah.
Ontario made K-Bars and still stamped them K-Bars just to help K-Bar keep their company as it is, right? So, yeah, definitely some issues with that.
You gotta
Spyderco
schmutz cloth around this thing's disgusting.
Yeah.
No, K-Bar's just uneven on their grind bevels. Like halfway through the knife, it'll change an angle.
That's fucked up.
Bevels, or Benchmade has a pretty clean bevel all the way through on a
They're
true
good at it.
angle.
It's just
Yeah.
it might
Yeah.
be a 35 on one side.
No, they just get to the tip and they don't know how to round it properly to give a proper tip, a proper grind line, right?
Although Benjamin has gotten better in recent times, they've been known to have a little bit of problems with tip centering. Other companies have been actually wobbly on the blades, meaning, oh, it's a 20 degree here, it's a 15 degree here.
Tip center.
SOG, CRKT, K-Bar, all brutal with the wobbling condor every once in a while when you try to get them to put a normal bevel on it. No good. No good at all.
Just,
Benchmade tip center, and speaking of which, this is fucking almost chisel ground. Yeah, I don't know if you can, viewers can get a view, but it's not that great, to tell you the truth.
how much
It's
does
not.
that? And how much does that knife
For a
cost?
$600 knife, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like brutal. Now, what concerned me way more than tip centering was blade centering.
Yeah.
When it came to that knife in particular and the Benchmade Anthem. No, that specific one was
I was
fantastic.
gonna say.
But the Benchmade Anthems at a
Almost put it down the wrong
$600
way.
price point, every single time you pulled one out that was not centered, it just disgusted me.
Yeah.
So before we get too far off of the grind lines and get onto another snobby factor, I'm going to say for me, the grind lines are one of the things I'm least snobbiest about because it's the easiest thing for us
Yes.
to change.
And I think snobs should tone down the grind bevel more than anything else. I think they should ease up on that. That's the least of our concerns.
Again,
Other than breaking my coasters, which that's
That's
slightly,
just one particular.
slightly
that's
higher than blade grinds, but
that's
not
one
my-
particular knife snob breaking one particular thing. We're okay. We're okay.
I was gonna mention the same thing about, like, if you know how to sharpen a knife,
it's easily fixed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
Whether it's a
personally,
belt or stones.
I never settle at a 20 to a 22 degree angle on any of my pocket knives. I nerd out. If it's 17 or less, it makes me a happy guy.
Yeah.
For sure.
You like your slicey shit though.
Yeah, it's a pocket knife. It's meant for slicing. If I wanted a bush knife, I'd have a fixed blade on my hip that I could beat the crap out of it with. But I don't do that with my pocket knives, so I adjust the bevels accordingly. Right? So
yeah, it seems like general consensus that the grind lines is definitely one of those high horses that people need to step off of, right?
I think
much,
so.
yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest ones more than anything else is people complaining about grind lines. What happens when you, even if you're upset about it the first time when you get the knife, use the knife for 6 months to a year, and what happens when you resharpen it? You can have the option to change those grind and those bevel lines. So like, suck it up.
Just deal with it.
For the
It's such a
life,
minor
for the
issue.
life of the knife, it's not worth complaining about.
No.
It really
Yeah.
isn't.
And if you're that bothered by it, you can sharpen it right away.
Yeah.
Like such a quick.
As I do as well, quite often. Yeah.
In that
Yes, sir.
same vein, there's a level of people that complain about sharpness. And I don't know if that's a second,
Sharpness
I don't think it's
out of
Factory edge out of the
same
box.
kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Different standards, but
Easily fixed.
fix your edge
Yeah.
and be done with it. Okay, on to the other one.
Yeah, so getting back to what Dennis was saying about centering of blades, and as Paul mentioned, this one was really, really good, but a lot of times Benchmades aren't.
Yeah.
And again, we're calling out Benchmates, but
Yeah.
for the last 3 to 4 months, I've noticed. I don't know if I would necessarily call it the centering that I would call on this PVT, because this PVT is actually phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, Paul,
Yeah,
you
it is.
picked out a fantastic knife to
And
choose.
I'm gonna have to
It was
toss
like the one and only option I had.
I'm gonna have to toss out my Mkusta here as far as bad centering right now. I do have to tweak it out from time to time, and it is almost rubbing the scale there.
Handmade Japanese, whatever you want to call it, but some inconsistencies might prevail because of what
Stuff
you get,
comes
right?
up like that with frame locks and ladder locks.
Although I don't notice it often, my tie light with S35 VN aluminum handles, it was expensive for a tie light. Centering is terrible.
Yeah.
Now,
one is bad.
slightly more important, but I'm going to throw out there right off the bat that as long as the blade is not scraping against the handle,
Yeah.
I personally do not care about the center.
Is your lockup solid?
You bet.
Do you damage the blade by opening it?
Much more important.
It won't
Yeah.
stop me from buying a knife, but if I can have the option, I'll pick the centered one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, if you have 3 to 4 to look at, I will nerd out like the rest of us and grab the 3 to 4 to look at, for sure.
Yeah.
Now-
But like I said, as long as structural damage isn't coming into play with it actually hitting the side of the knife itself, I think it's something that knife nerds need to get over.
Yeah.
I really do.
So, kind of next topic of snobbiness that we were going to discuss was the lockup of things and the percentage of lockup, and especially with liner locks and frame locks.
Yeah. Not so much with compression locks, but it does come into play with a bar that's sliding over as far as a spring tension goes, but much more liner and frame, for sure.
Yeah.
With the prevalence of titanium frame locks on the market today, it's a huge point of attention. A lot of people will be, oh, look at this, only 75% lockup. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, lots of people seem to get really nitpicky about how far over the lock bar travels in comparison to the face of the tang on the blade. And there's like some magical number that lots of people seem to think is the percentage and
The right
where
number.
it should be, and if it's not exactly within that range, it's not going to be any good and the lock's going to fail. And
So we'll go into like a titanium frame lock with my mini skirmish.
Mhm.
It's almost phenomenal at like 70% lockup with a titanium frame lock.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into a lion steel at the same point, which is less than a year old and still sitting at a good 60 to 70% lockup. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. Now, Joe was mentioning his Emerson in particular.
Hold them up.
Oh, for sure. So with the Emerson, it's 100% lockup if you're looking at the stainless insert. What I noticed with a lot of these knives, though, the harder you open them, sometimes the farther they travel. And you can actually get that knife to go almost all the way to the other side of the scale with gentle pressure.
Yeah, I don't like that.
However,
That bothers me.
I've stress tested this knife. I've spine whacked it, which you shouldn't be doing with bolt. I understand, but I wanted to see what it would take. I only got that lock to fail once. The first time I attempted using it as it disengaged. But I'd never had it happen again.
And I will mention that with my mini skirmish, it's a decade old.
Yeah.
Titanium on titanium, no carbonization.
Titanium on steel.
Titanium on steel, sorry.
Yeah.
No carbonization, no steel lock bar insert. Still, 10 years later, magnificently locking up at a good 60 to 70% on that knife.
I was going to say, the people that complain about that also seem to be the same guys that do the spine wax,
Mhm.
which really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, for me, as long as it locks up and it doesn't seem like the lock's actually going to slip one way or the other, I'm fine with it. I'm going to be using a knife where the pressure is pushing back onto the spine
Yes.
rather than pushing down onto the lock.
And I think people forget
Yeah.
that a lot, is that ultimately you cutting with a knife is surface tension here that you're pushing down into, and you're pushing down into it, which is pushing the knife backwards, so lock
Pushing it
no
open.
longer matters. Lock strength really matters when it comes to stabbing things, or boring, or whatever. There is some techniques where you can use the tip of your knife.
Accidentally knocking the backside of your knife into something. That for accidental purposes, like that's really, it's just a little bit of insurance, but you shouldn't rely on it.
And even accidental back whacks. When's the last time you had an accidental back whack? And yeah,
Never.
I am gonna call it that. Like, it's seriously.
please don't.
For knife guys, that shouldn't be a factor. That's why Swiss Army knives still exist to this day, is because you can functionally use a knife without a lock
It was almost my turn.
and not have to
Almost.
worry.
Almost got pecked.
Almost.
So,
Don't do it.
So pretty much general consensus once again, as long as it locks, we're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, if I don't have to worry about failure in any sort of way, light tap just to test it, you get 2 or 3, good to go. All right, let's do this then.
Mhm.
And that's good enough for me, honestly.
So kind of next up we'll get into, kind of goes on along with how the lock's functioning and how it's worn away and stuff like that, or potentially could be, is a minor blade play. Whether it's a lateral side to side or if it's an up and down against the lock face or not.
Okay.
This is one that kind of gets me, to be honest.
I will say, in particular situations, particular occupations, when you decide that a pocket knife is acceptable, if you're not allowed to wear a fixed blade on a job, you have to wear a pocket knife of some sort. the blade play, the triad lock, the lockup matters because you're doing something highly abusive to the knife. That's going to matter. But I am going to boldly say that 80 to 90% of us out there that are carrying a knife, myself included, if there is a mil of blade play left or right, it is not going to change my cutting ability in any way when it comes to the pocket knife that
I
I'm
will
carrying.
intentionally induce something like that into usually stuff that's on like bronze washers and stuff like that. I'll have a lot of slop in it just because it doesn't matter to me.
You know, one of my most hard-used knives is I wish I had it here, was the Ford Peasant. And there is so much horizontal blade play when it's in the fully open position. But I've put that thing through things I haven't done with my Emerson, or ZT Emerson. Like, it doesn't, as long as your edge is aligned the way you need it to be to make your cut, it should be fine.
Yeah.
It does piss me off when I get it in a $250 plus knife. That's the big thing.
And I was going to dabble on price point compared to QC. And then I have a standard. It's not that it changes the performance of the knife. It changes my perspective on what I expect to get
What I should for.
Exactly.
for that knife. And when you're working with a high-end price point, I expect the QC to be better, but I don't necessarily gripe the knife function in any way. Some of the best knives I own in pocket knives have mild play because I choose not to baton with them. And short of that, I can do anything else I want with them, including my Contigo, and Jesus, I have not been nice to that knife. But I don't baton with it, and that's my only rule with a pocket knife, and other than that, it's all systems go, and even a mil, half a mil play on either side is not going to change the function. I think we need to get over it as a community, a little bit.
Precision cuts where you need to be accurate within less than a millimeter, you know what? If you're making cuts like that, it doesn't matter if there's play anyway, because you can hold your blade steady.
You're not
then
making those
make it.
precision cuts with your pocket knife anyways, probably.
Now, I guess,
Especially with a sub 2.5 inch knife.
no, and I think what people are worried about is slop. They don't want a knife to be poorly built, so they want this sign of high or zero tolerance, like, oh yeah, everything's nicely done and nice and fit. I can understand the desire for perfection, but I mean, it's just not required for 90% of your tasks.
I completely agree with everything that we're saying here about side-to-side play, but I feel the exact opposite way about up and down play.
Lock rock.
Yeah.
Lock rock bothers me to no end, especially when it's a brand new knife and you pick it up and it's right out of the box.
If it's something that you have to actually like move and try to find, it doesn't bother me. But if it's like you pick it up in a single hand and you can move it and
Rattle.
you feel it, then that bothers me. But if you have to like force it, like forcing it right there, I can feel a little bit of lock rock. But it's solid.
Yeah.
In that little guy too, I wouldn't worry about it as much as something that's larger.
And I think for me, that goes down to price point again.
Yeah.
And on a price point, I have a higher expectation on the fit and finish aspect, whereas a lower price point, I'm more likely to overlook it a little bit.
Sometimes they'll want a little bit of vertical play.
It's not a non-locking knife though.
I know.
It
but
doesn't count.
No, I'm kind of honestly.
All right, new note.
Opinion.
New note. We're done with that show. What's our next one?
Steel choices.
Ah, yes.
Oh, God. We
Yeah.
got to get over some of that. And I'm the worst.
Oh yeah, you're up there for sure.
Yeah. Ask me if I have something lower than S30, and I'll tell you I got a pub, but
What'd you think of 4116?
put it at a 12-degree angle. 4116. I'm not as snobby as you guys. Ask Joe about 4116. He hates it. Ask Paul about HCR. He hates it more than
well,
me.
We've talked about this. It's
Ask
at
me
the
about-
prices that they appear at,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing to consider.
Most of my snobbery around steel happens more in the I want that knife, but I already own that steel and three
Yeah.
other knives.
And I'm,
Yeah.
I'm very much that way as well. As I own 4 knives and 3V. Show me something else or whatever
and
it
from,
is.
and from the collector's standpoint, that kind of makes sense. Like all these different, look at Spyderco, all these sprint runs and variations of different knives.
The Mule series where they're always playing with the new steel and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's
it's a
where
nice
you
touch
got to
for the
give
collectors.
credit to Spyderco on playing with those knee steels by releasing the mules, and
Yeah.
basically it's an introduction to say like, hey, we're going to use some of this.
Yeah.
And here's some variety. Play with
Exactly why I bought my Dragonfly.
it. Oh, the Vitoken.
Yeah,
joking.
the only reason I bought it was because it's token.
Pete from Cedric Canada just put up a thing on the Rex 45, PM2 or PM3, I can't remember which one it was. astounding results on Rex 45, and people have been talking about Rex 45, but as far as like the next big thing, everyone's kind of put it as like, yeah, it's cool, but it's no Maximate, it's no M390, it's no 20CV. It might be. It might be. Like, it's, so it's interesting to see. But, as far as the nerdy aspect with the steel choice goes, that wants me to double back on how many people I've talked to that a Kershaw Cryo is the best thing they've ever had in their lives, and they can't believe that they own a knife so awesome. I've heard it on more, and the Kershaw Cryo, because that particular knife, I don't know why, Kershaw's got a niche with that thing that's awesome for what it is. But large or small, I hear people talk about the 8CR on the Kershaw Cryo as being like, man, this thing is a step up from anything I've ever had in my life.
Yep.
As far as 8CR goes, it was nice.
You'll say that much.
Blade geometry, ergonomics,
People were saying similar things about the Tenacious lineup. For a long
You
while.
bet. You bet. They still do a little bit. But the PM is getting cheap enough that people don't talk about the Tenacious
No,
spots
not when you
anymore.
can get S30 for, and that's the kind of thing. You're driving these higher priced steels.
Yeah. The thing that I find really funny about the knife steel nerds and people being, like, especially knife geeks being really nerdy about the knife steels is when you get to a level that you're actually being nerdy enough about the knife steels, you're already the sort of person that's going to be nerdy enough to be able to maintain and use and appreciate all the different knife steels. Whereas the benefits of something like S90 or something like that with the edge retention, put it in the hand of someone who's like going on about how great the cryo is and get them to play with an S90 and they will blow their mind.
Yeah, that's how you get someone from a $50 knife to a $300 knife real quick.
Yeah.
Is introduce them to that $300 knife and then show them where the ceiling is.
Yeah.
So
And you're
I
like,
don't have to resharpen
oh.
for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going is the people that are using the 8CR and stuff like that and having their mind blown aren't the sorts of guys that are going to be geeky enough to keep up the level to keep that sort of performance.
Well, think about the money you have to invest in sharpening equipment
Yeah.
in order to do the job right. Like Dennis keeps harping on people, making sure you have the right tools for the job, including sharpening.
Yeah. If you're going to get M4, get Diamond and
Yeah.
Ultra Fines to play with M4, or you're going to be frustrated with M4. Like, it's yeah.
Like I've tried to resharpen S110V on the Spyderco Brownstones. It's not fun. It sucks.
Yep.
It does.
It really, really sucks.
And understanding carbide structure to go with it, but that's knife nerdery to its finest.
It's getting so far into the geekery.
Like when you're getting, so I think steel choice is one of those things that I think we need to get over as a community, more than anything else, and look at the knife for what it is and not what's in it.
Yeah,
But
and
for the innovation that it inspires, I think people wanted the next
innovation
greatest,
is good.
For people wanting the next greatest thing, I love the way that all these companies are contributing to the development of steels. I think it's impressive, and it's cool for nerds like us to enjoy it. But what I mean is, don't forget about 1095. Don't forget about the Oz 8s and all those.
Yeah, well, kind of my point there was like
12C27.
if you're going to be geeky enough that you're looking for all the higher end steels, you're probably going to be geeky enough that you enjoy sharpening. Why do you snub your nose at something that you have to sharpen when you enjoy sharpening?
And this is one thing that we've dabbled on in the past, and I will bring it up briefly when it comes to enjoying sharpening, is it's a diminishing return. And for some steels, and I'll even give credit to 8CR over in Oz 8 on the ease of sharpening compared to the return you get for the edge retention.
Yeah.
8CRs, it's a borderline. 12C27s, it's a borderline.
12C27, I love though because you could maintain with stropping.
You bet, yeah. So like I said, it's a borderline of whether the edge retention is worth the effort to maintain it. Things like Croup Steel and Oz 8, and especially Oz 8A that's still in the annealed form, the trade-off to keep it sharp compared to the performance that you get, I don't think is worth the trade-off. Even when it comes to an old school VG10 or an old school D2 or an old school 1095, I think even some of the old school steels have a better performance than some of the like 90s steels that were the wonder steels that were introducing us to a stainless world that we weren't ready for.
A lot of those steels you just mentioned have that really good trade-off of how quickly you can sharpen it versus how long it stays sharpened for. And really that ratio is what's most important, I think, in my opinion.
But I think the 4116 and the Oz 8 was a couple of those steels that was the introduction to a good stainless world.
Yeah.
And God bless them for what they were in 1996. But we're now living in 2019, and those were the introductions to things better to come.
100%.
When people online are talking about S30 and S35 no longer being a premium steel,
That's nuts.
So nuts.
4116
You've
approved-
said that, sir.
I did say it, but I'm not the first one.
No.
And it's a thing that's happening within the in the last year is it's not a premium steel. So when you put Oz 8 and HCR13 MOV into those same categories, those are now your
Insults.
your 440As of the 2000 world
Yeah.
type of thing, right?
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a big thing we're talking about this whole video is steel choice. And at the end of it, we've ranted like mofos about steel choice.
Yep.
To the point where we don't get to talk about some of the topics we wanted to talk about.
But these things needed to be said, damn
Yeah,
it.
yeah. This little video that we brought to you this week is just kind of the opening to the rabbit hole of the knife snobbery world. There's so much more we could get into, such as bearings versus washers, what type of material for the washers.
We kept it general, my
The
friend.
countries of origin, blade geometries, hollow grinds, saber grinds, flat grinds. Jesus, we can nerd for days, guys.
Very much so. So if there's any subjects that you guys would like us to just fly off the rails on, and I'm sure we could easily do so, feel free to comment. And
Oh, I'd love the next video
Yeah.
to half be what we missed here and half be your guys' comments. I'd love to see what you guys want to see us rant about. Because
Yeah, what matters to you guys?
no shortage, and yeah. We'll tell you what we think, for
If you
sure.
want to hear 4 different convoluted arguments, you will get them.
Yes,
that you
will.
shall.
For better, for worse.
Great
Probably for
structures.
worse.
Jesus, like it
Yeah.
keeps
Wow.
on going. It keeps on going.
Oh, so much, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
tips.
thanks, Laren, for adding that whole other level of complexity. Holy crap.
Yeah. So yeah, that being said, to try and keep things somewhat short and concise, we are going to round off this little delve into the knife snobbery world.
This is a part 1 of question mark, just to let you guys know. Like,
We'll see where it goes in the future. But for now, we will close it off. Nigel the Smith saying goodbye.
I am who I am. I'm Dennis Fibers.
I am the Iron Joe.
And I'm XL.ca.
We will catch you again next time.
We don't need bigger knives.